Hi all, this is Kirt Cathey with 5 Hacking Tips. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to cover what is intelligence. A lot of times when people start out in cybersecurity, this term intelligence pops up, and sometimes it gets associated perhaps with enumeration or reconnaissance. But I just wanted to go through very simply what is intelligence and what it means to us when we're defending an environment. And then also, particularly, you think of intelligence more along the terms of defending or looking at defense architecture within a security operations, some kind of security organization. When we talk about enumeration or reconnaissance, we're most likely on the other side where we're using intelligence tools to find out about our target or whoever we're targeting. Without going really deep into the tools, I'm just going to provide some resources. I myself am not a big OSInt person. I'm very familiar with the different types of intelligence, and then also the closed intelligence sources that are out there and the types of services that are out there, and then also how to integrate those sources into security appliances, basically importing IOCs, but also applying what you understand about other factors related to intelligence and how to apply that to your environment. Let me pull my mic up a little closer. So let me pop this over here. So over here on the other screen, I've created a deck, and I'll provide these in the YouTube video description. But one source that I would recommend if you really want to get into OS intelligence is a book I actually bought for myself. Is that? So the book disappeared, but it's written right here. It's called Open Source Intelligence Techniques, and it's written by Michael Bazzell. It'll pop up here in a minute as I'm looking around. Yeah, slight intermission there. But let me see that again. Open Source Intelligence Techniques, Michael Bazzell. It's a pretty thick book, but it's just basically a catalog of research resources by what you want to research. To tell you the truth, I haven't used the book a lot because there is an Ubuntu open source intelligence load set that they provide in a virtual machine. And then he also provides the setup manually within the book step by step. I did the latter. I actually installed my own version of Ubuntu, and let me show you here. And this is it running inside a VMware instance. But in there are a bunch of files. If you look at this other tab here, look really close. That's a files that are in there. So these are the files that came with the book. It comes with a bunch of tools. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. If you really want to get into open source intelligence, like right off the bat and hit the ground running, this is a really good resource. Another thing I wanted to point out in terms of a resource is this is Intel Techniques, but if you go to his actual book website, there's also another resources in there. Sorry about that. And there's some resources on here also listed on top of what he files that come with them. And then another resource I wanted to point out was also the it's actually the threat intelligence roadmap or Mindmap. Thing about this though is it's more of, instead of an open source intelligence perspective, it actually goes after threat intelligence itself. And I'll cover that a little more later on. What the difference is between like open source intelligence, actual threat intelligence. and I've got the link there. And then I guess the third point I wanted to make while I was talking on the video is, what is the difference between open source intelligence and closed intelligence or closed source? And quite often, it's kind of like everything about open source intelligence is on the surface web or on the deep web. So it's everything you're going to find in Facebook, Twitter, and like even a deeper web like pastebins and in other storage areas like that, and social areas like that. What you get out of closed source intelligence, though, tends to be a lot deeper and cover a lot more dark web coverage. Closed source intelligence many times will have connections into exclusive closed IRC channels. So a lot of people think of Internet Relay Chat, and they usually just think of MIRC on Windows, Merkle on Macs. They don't get really beyond that. But what a lot of actors do, and threat actors do, is they actually have private channels and private servers. And so that's like a deeper level of intelligence that you get from threat actors that are out there. And even outside of like IRC. In the dark web, we have closed invite only forums. They've had activity in there for years, so they're actually just running bots in there like everybody else is, but they have access. In an example, I have an example of like some closed source intelligence I can share with you as a service. There's something I've come into, and I've worked in full disclosure. I work with these guys and actually promote the product, but it's called 0-day log. And when you log into it, this is an example page. Like, log into it right there. It gives you a campaign notice, and it looks like it's critical because it's red. And you can go from there. You can view that one, and inside of that, but it shows it, a detailed description. But not only that, it provides the MD5 hashes, so you can immediately put these IOC, the acronym I mentioned earlier. That's called an indicator of compromise, and that represents either a SHA-256 or an MD5 hash that you can put in as a signature in your IPS, IDS, or whatever your flavor of. You can also put in domain filters, because these are bad actor domain. Then there are, of course, IP addresses. And this is fresh. This is closed source. This is not, by the way, here you go, guys. Freebie for you. I can't be showing too much of this. And then there's a whole other slew of what they have basically as 0-day lineup of. It's amazing. And that's what you get when you pay price for a product. And it's closed source for a reason. It is more expensive, but the return that you get on it, many times when people implement closed source intelligence, after having not enabled it, for example, on an next-gen firewall on the perimeter, I mean, it just lights up, with a lot of alerts, and you actually tend to find out that you're already infected with malware. And then there are other players. There's like Recorded Future. I haven't seen the Recorded Future dashboard. They're a player. And then there's CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike kind of like, the way that their intelligence is put together, it kind of overlaps with a lot of other intelligence. So, I mean, this is just my personal thing. The way I would rate these three is like CrowdStrike would be like Wendy's. Recorded Future would be, I don't know, Sizzler Steakhouse, and then Blackwired would be Luger's or Wolfgang's. I mean, that's just my personal on rating these three particularly. Where intelligence applies in cybersecurity operations, and I've already hinted on that. so far. And a lot of times you get threat intelligence, and that's what I just showed you with 0 Day Live. And that's what you get a lot from Recorded Future, CrowdStrike, or any players. But the threat intelligence itself, the reason I wrote that as a separate bullet point, and people might argue with like why I did that. And one of the reasons is that there are intelligent organizations. I mean, we're talking about information security and we're in cybersecurity. So there are intelligent organizations, and then there are other organizations that are not intelligent. I don't want to say that they're ignorant or anything like that, but an intelligent organization is going to make architectural, operational decisions based on what their understanding of intelligence about the environment is. And that's a big difference. And that's kind of the way that you have to go, or that's the stance that you have to take in order to properly and proactively protect the environment. Let's face it, because that's what the threat actors, they're operating totally off of reconnaissance, that kind of thing. So they're finding out as much as they can about you. There's no reason why you shouldn't know who's targeting yourself as well. So that's just what I mean by that one bullet point. But it also ties to the next bullet point, which is situational awareness. With that intelligence, you can actually look around and have a better understanding of your situational awareness, both through, like, for example, social comments. That goes back to OSInt. You can go and look and see what the, what the chatter is about the company on open forums and even closed forums. And then like deep web pastings, pastebin, and that kind of thing, to see if people are like pasting interesting information or interesting setting information about, see if your IP addresses are popping up in those repositories. And then also where intelligence allows you to do more operationally is in the area of like SIEM tuning or alert tuning, looking at SIEM strategy. What do you have to log in? How long do you have? That goes into, for example, information lifecycle management, that kind of thing. But also from a security strategy perspective, what needs to be logged, what doesn't really need to be logged, when do you need to log certain things, and make those adjustments based on what you know from the intelligence that you. And then also another thing that comes up is campaign notices. So what I had just showed you on 0 Day Live was a campaign they had named in Blackwired Cloudfire. So that's a campaign notice, and that's usually coming from a closed source intelligence. And then tactical alerting. So things that come up, hey, we have seen something on the dark web related to your company or related to your subdomain of your top level domain, that kind of thing. And it looks like you're a part of a campaign that's active right now. And that's where that kind of goes up with, alert tuning. But when I say tactical alerting, is actually making really quick adjustments instead of adjustments over time, so that you're getting proper level of tactical alerting or specific to a specific campaign in terms of how systems. And then the other thing about intelligence is integrations. So when you have, I'm going to pop back to the slide there. I went through all the previous points where it applies in security operations. Sorry about that. But with integrations, like I had shown you earlier, there are indicators of compromise that come in the form of like MD5 hashes or SHA SHA-256 hashes. And those basically give you the hash values of the files that would be used in the attack. And then another thing that doesn't really come up a lot of times when you do a high level on intelligence, but TTP, tools, tactics, and procedures. So to understand, like if the attacker is going to be living off of the land in a Windows environment, you really want to pay special attention to what's happening with PowerShell. Or another TTP would be like, they go after CVE 2021-1040, whatever that is. And actually, I think that's. But anyways, and so that if they're going to go after that, they're going after like Sophos firewall. And do you have any of that in your environment? So that's what TTP. And then the other thing is turning it around, going back towards like looking at it from a perspective of threat hunting. So you know what these hashes are, and you can take this, for example, with 0 Day Live, you can take these hashes and run them in your environment and actually become a very effective threat hunter if your particular industry or your company is a target. And I have seen this happen with threat hunters. They get new, good closed source intelligence, and they basically run with it, and the company rewards them a lot of the time. They run with this closed source intelligence, they get access to it, and they basically clean out the environment of. So what I saw was, and it still comes up a lot of times in enterprise environments. It's like whack-a-mole. You can never get enough people to threat hunt enough. But taking that also and finding it and then running it back through for attribution. And that's like a big intelligence analysis step that some services provide. So that's another interesting thing. So with intelligence, that's about all that I have to say about it. I can cover, and I probably will cover enumeration. I've covered enumeration a couple times already, but I'll continue to cover enumeration from a hacking perspective. But as far as intelligence is concerned, I pretty much deal with a lot of times with security operations, things that I work with closed source intelligence and closed source intelligence integrations. And then also extending like with automation or where possible. But I'm not a big open source intelligence person per se, because I leverage tools a lot. And this very first link up here, open source intelligence techniques with Michael Bazzell, that's definitely, buy that and run from there, because it's just a resource that you can go to when you decide that you need to do some or utilize some open source intelligence. That's my bit for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good evening, and like, subscribe. Thanks for all the support. It's been great. It's been good. Take care.